Good morning. Oh, I guess good afternoon. It's usually morning, but today it's an afternoon on the bench with Big Jim. Welcome to uh, our show. My name is Jim Nielsen, and I am the host of this show. It's been crazy in that my schedules have changed, and so we're going to do an afternoon show today. I don't know what's going to happen on Friday, but I will let you know when Friday's show is going to be. I wanted to, before I forget, I wanted to congratulate the Moses Lake Chiefs baseball team as they won the state championship last weekend. I talked about it a little bit on Monday's show. It was Memorial Day and the show was pretty short, but I wanted to acknowledge the state championship Chiefs baseball team, Donnie Lundgren and his staff and the players and everybody involved that's helped support these young men as they've put together an outstanding season. And it's great to see these kids reach that pinnacle of a state championship. I was fortunate enough to be on a state championship wrestling team when I was in high school. I've been fortunate enough to be associated with some other football state championships when I was an athletic trainer back in Arkansas, and it is a special thing, and doesn't happen often because there's so many teams and there's so many different combinations and everything like that, and so I think it's important that we acknowledge the Chiefs baseball team as they won the state 4A baseball championships this last weekend. Also, I want to make sure I thank my sponsors, Jay's Teriyaki Grill, Thesis Merchant Solutions, Frederick's Jewelers, and Boost Mobile for helping support this this podcast. Also, the wrestling kids, the athletes that are going to be wrestling in the national tournaments coming up, they're having another car wash this Sunday, and so I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that so that they could come out and help support the Chiefs as they raise money to be able to go to the national tournaments that are going to be coming up here in June and July. Football has started, and so spring football's already started, so that's kind of crazy as well. Coming up here in a couple weeks, we have the Moses Lake Air Show, and we are going to talk with Mr. Darrin Jackson today about this event that's going to be held at Grant County International Airport, and lots of different activities, and it's going to be a pretty and I've been to an air show, but a lot of people haven't been to air shows, and I wanted to make sure that they were aware of it. And so I've asked Mr. Darrin Jackson to come on and visit with us today about the upcoming Moses Lake Air Show. So welcome to On the Bench with Big Jim, Darrin. Thanks for coming on and being on the show.
You bet. Good afternoon, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing good. Just to kind of introduce there's probably a lot of people know you here in Moses Lake. You've been here a long time, but I'd like to introduce yourself to my listeners and tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been flying airplanes, or when did you first get connected to the aviation world of aviation?
I started out at a really young age, flying in my dad's lap at 4.
Wow,
So
4.
If you do the math, I'm 52 now.
So 40.
It's been quite a journey.
And so you grew up. You grew up at the airport.
I grew up. Yes.
So
I
tell us.
especially grew up at the Moses Lake Municipal Airport, so that's the small airport.
Right, and that's out there out to Wheeler Road, and then you take a left
Yeah.
after the gas station. And so
Yep.
tell us, did your dad was he just leisure or enjoyment fly, or
No,
did he aircraft dust
my
crap?
dad was my dad was a crop duster.
Oh, okay.
And he's been a flight instructor. It seems like forever. He's still flying today.
He still flies.
He's also one of your current city council members. So he's 77 years old now. He's the newest examiner for the FAA in the state of Washington.
Okay.
So he still flies about 35 to 40 hours a week with students.
Oh, wow! So he's teaching and having them.
Yeah.
Now, that's got to
Still
be
instructing.
that's got to be a pretty cool job, because you get to go fly and you're helping teach, but you're up in the air.
It's a neat office.
Yeah.
It's a cool office. We got the best office view in the state of Washington.
I would imagine. I would imagine that would be a true statement. I have a friend who I was in college with who was learning to fly, but he went into the Air Force and he still flies for Delta, and he took my wife and his wife. We went up around the school where we were living up in the mountains. A beautiful view, and I would imagine if I'd have done it more, I would have gotten over the motion sickness of it all. But it's kind of an addicting thing. I see more and more of my friends that are young guys starting to get their personal or their private pilot licenses, and
it's an excellent career to get in.
And that's
if you want to do it for a career, you want to do it leisurely.
And that's
it turns every weekend into a vacation if you want.
Yeah, and that's a business that you run out there at the airport, right?
Yes.
And it's called Jackson Flight Center. Cool.
We teach all the way from ultralight pilots all the way up to airline transport pilot.
Oh, okay.
It's not unsimilar. It's different federal regulations than what Big Bend Community College does.
Yeah.
But you end up with the exact same licenses.
So, tell me, if a guy like myself wanted to start from scratch, how many hours do you have to get to be able to advance, to be able to be a private pilot for a small airplane for myself?
Okay, so I'll give you the politician's answer, because that's how they write it in the book.
I gotcha.
So believe it or not, you can have a pilot's license with little as 20 hours total time in an airplane.
Are you serious?
Now, that being said, it's kind of ridiculous, but legally you can have, it's like you get a car license when you're 16.
Sure.
So depending on the type of airplane, there are some restrictions. 20 hours minimum, you can have pilot's license.
Wow.
Now to haul more than one passenger, then you have to step up to private pilot.
Okay.
So there are several licenses. Private pilot would be 40 hours of total time.
Okay.
But you can use your first 20 to acquire that 40 hours.
Okay.
The next step would be instrument rated pilot and a commercial pilot. That's 250 hours.
Now,
and once you have that rating,
go ahead.
You can go to work for the airline.
Oh, really? So
250 hours. Yeah.
And that instrument means you have to be able to fly by instrument. So if you're in a cloud, right?
Yes, you can't look outside. There's no outside to look at.
That's where I'm gonna have to draw the line, because that's where I think I would.
So it's kind of like being in a snowstorm and still plowing ahead and making sure you don't hit a rock.
Right.
Making sure you don't hit a rock-line cloud.
Oh, and that happens. So I mean that would be the scary.
That does happen. Yeah, that would mistakes happen.
Yes, they do. And a doctor that I work for here in Moses Lake had his pilots. He had his own plane, and I remember we transported a patient. One over to Yakima and one to Seattle, and so I've been in a small airplane, 3-4 seaters, that kind of thing, a couple times, and I think it would be. I'm glad I don't have the resources, because that'd be something I'd probably want to do, because that view.
It's actually not any more expensive than if you like to go bass fishing.
Oh, really?
If you put it in that context, because the first thing you want to do is buy a nice bass boat.
Sure.
Okay, so then you got a nice bass boat. Well, you got to have a nice truck to pull a nice bass boat.
That's right.
And then all the other stuff. When you add it all up, you got more than what you got in an airplane.
Airplane, yeah.
Airplanes can be purchased as little as $20,000.
Oh, wow.
And of course they go up from there.
Sure they do.
So some of the private airplanes are in the millions now.
Okay, so to get back to you, you sat in your dad's. Did you crop dust with your dad? Okay.
I kind of took a sabbatical. I went into the Army for 14 years.
Okay.
And dad kind of retired, and I kind of started flying. I had a pilot's license, but didn't do much flying, and I bought an ultralight of all things. So it kind of like a flying lawn chair. So it had wings on it and a 2-cycle motor, and I used to just go fly around. And pretty soon, a couple of my friends, hey, can you teach me how to do that? And I looked at the regulations, and I go, well, yeah, I can teach you how to do it. And almost 20 years ago, when we started this company, it was started off, and I tell everybody, it was started by a flying lawn chair, and now we fly. We have about 32 active students right now.
Oh, wow!
And of course, they rotate. So and we fly international students. So we're certified. We fly a lot of Japanese students from Mitsubishi aircraft.
Okay.
Because it's extremely cheaper to get your license in the United States than it is to get it in Japan.
Oh.
It's god awful expensive
in Japan. Yeah.
So they get all their licenses here, and the hardest part of flying is not the flying. In the international realm, it's everything in the world is predicated on the English language. So even if I fly in the Soviet Union, everybody talks in English. So if you don't have good English skills, then they had to base the entire world in aviation off of something. So they picked English language. So everybody everywhere you fly speaks English.
And everybody
may not be good English, but it's still English.
And everybody's pretty much fine with that.
Yes, yeah. All the airlines around the world are all English or some form of English.
Okay.
Some form of English.
I never thought about that, but I guess with all of the international flights and going here and there and coming back, because I've flown in Europe, I've been to Russia, I've been to Uzbekistan, and I never thought about that. So no, that's an interesting point. That's a very
and thank God all the signs on the ground are in English. Pilots are good at getting to the airport. We get lost on the ground.
That's right.
Yeah.
That brings up a lot of memories of being in Russia, not being able to read anything. So, yeah. I mean, you obviously you're around the airport a lot, and so your dad was a flyer, and that's what he did for a living. And so you guys, I mean, obviously, you went a lot of different places, and that was the thing that I was leading to earlier. Is that view from the air? That's I like maps. I like to look at maps just to see where I've been and see the geography of the land. But going over the ground in the air, I love to be able to sit on the window and be able to look and see outside. And that's probably one of the appealing things of flying, is that you get to see what you can't even comprehend while you're on the ground because of the angle, and that's probably one of
the speed.
That
the biggest deal is the speed.
That too, yeah. But now those smaller ultra smaller planes, what's the speed? Like that little plane that you were talking about with the lawn chair, how fast would that go?
Oh, it does like 40 mile an hour.
Okay.
So it's just a slow, doesn't go anywhere in a hurry. Yeah. It's just flying. Yeah. It would remind you of riding a motorcycle. That's what it felt like. I'm afraid of heights, always have been. I know that sounds weird coming from a pilot.
Really?
I just don't look straight down.
Okay.
So once I'm flying, it's not a big deal. I've been on the search and rescue for almost 20 years as the lead pilot for search and rescue for Grant County.
Yeah.
And I, of course, have to look down all the time, and it bothers me. So but it's like anything else. You just get over it. It's like a guy going deep sea fishing.
Right.
First couple times he's sicker than a dog, and after a while you finally get your sea legs, and you just keep going.
Right.
And flying's the same way.
And I was alluding to that earlier. The first time I went out with Kevin and his Cindy and I went out with Kevin and his wife Lisa. That was up and down and all of that jostling kind of made me a little bit airsick. But I think that would be something that I would have been able to overcome. But I'm not because I'm such a big guy. I don't fit very easily into an airplane, into a seat. But
you're a little bit bigger than me, but I'm 225 to 245, depends on what time of the year it is, and I'm 6'2", so I don't fit. I have to cram myself into a lot of airplanes I don't really fit in.
Right.
But everybody, it's amazing the people that we've had. Mary Karen Liebrich, I've taught her how to fly. Her and her husband. It's just amazing how many people have licenses or are students that have, taken a sabbatical or whatever they want to call it, and then came back to aviation.
And to be able to rent an airplane to take it somewhere is probably pretty economical as opposed to having to buy an airplane. Isn't that right?
Oh yes, yeah.
And
airplanes in general, a owner of an airplane on last year's stats, and it hasn't fluctuated much in the last 20 years. But an owner that's a private pilot that just flies, when it's nice out, nice and sunny and no wind, flies his airplane an average of 17 hours a year. That's it.
Oh, the individual.
So
but
the rest of the time it's sitting in a hangar. You're paying hangar rent, and then you have an annual every year, so the airplane gets completely taken apart and disassembled every year and put back together.
So make sure everything's functioning properly.
Make sure it's airworthy.
That's true. That would be something I would want to make sure that happens. So. So when did you first start flying yourself as opposed to sitting in your dad's lap?
16.
Oh, now is it similar to like a driver's license? Can you get a pilot's license younger than 16?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, technically you can. The federal government is like any other thing they do. There's always an out for something.
Sure.
So the earliest you can have a license is 14 years old for sailplanes.
Okay.
So you can go to your FREDA. Some people call them sailplanes, some people call them gliders.
Mm-hmm.
A glider just glides around. A sailplane can stay in the air longer than a glider. That's the differences. So if you have ever heard of the Civil Air Patrol, the Civil Air Patrol is an auxiliary of the Air Force. They're directly connected to aviation in all of its aspects, whether it's communications or anything else.
I help.
They have an encampment. They have an encampment once a year that in 2 weeks they teach guys that have never flown how to fly a sailplane.
Oh, cool.
So they solo in 2 weeks. So that happens every year there in Ephrata.
Well, I remember
ever since I was a kid.
I remember helping with an Eagle Scout project at the Civil Air Patrol there in Ephrata. So, I know they have a bit.
Camp Best.
That's cool. That's a cool thing. So,
the earliest to be 14.
Okay, but you got your pilot's license at 16, and you started. You were able to fly while you were in high school.
Yeah. It was kind of a neat deal for high school proms and everything else. So.
Oh, did you tell?
We weren't limited to the fog cutter and the South Shore restaurant. We'd get in the plane and fly to the Tri-Cities for dinner, and then come back for the dances.
Tell us. So that was that's the story.
Nice.
So you were able to do that a couple times on dances in high school.
Yeah, I used to do it on Dad's bill because I couldn't afford the gas. Back then, the gas in the airplane was expensive. So
sure.
He'd always ask me, "Did you take the plane?" No, I didn't take the plane.
Oh, that's funny. It always comes down to that, doesn't it?
It never changes. Now my kids do the same thing. So it's
Well, before I forget, I wanted to thank you for your service in the military. Tell us a little bit about what you did in the military Did it have to do with flying, or were you just in the military?
No, believe it or not, my eyesight wasn't good enough to be a pilot.
Oh.
My dad retired with 26 years in the Air Force, and I think just to make him upset as a rebel teenager, I enlisted in the National Guard when I was a junior in high school.
Oh, okay.
So my junior summer, I went to basic training, came back to Moses Lake, back to the Chiefs, finished up my senior year, which was dramatically easier than being in the Army.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
And got all my homework done. It's probably the best time my GPA went way up. Ended up the day after graduation, was back active duty again, back to Fort Dix, New Jersey. And I wanted the military. Of course, it made my dad upset that I joined the Air Force instead of the Army, or had joined the Army instead of the Air Force.
Of course.
Because I put in a whole bunch of time in the Civil Air Patrol, which would have granted me 2 extra stripes in the Air Force starting out. I didn't want to follow in my dad's footsteps at that point in life, and decided to join the Army. So that's always been a big contention in our family. After that, I wanted the military to teach me something outside of the military. So if I stayed in for 20 years, they would have trained me to do something besides the Army.
Oh.
So I decided I was going to be I decided to have them train me as a heavy diesel repair mechanic. So I did that for 3 years in Ephrata at the National Guard OMS shop, and decided that I didn't like changing wheel bearings for the rest of my life. Signed up for sniper school when I was in the National Guard, and between sniper school and driving a truck and everything else in the Army, because you get cross-trained and everything.
Sure.
So I had licenses for everything, and I got out as a E6 in the Army. And the only reason I got out is my unit was getting demobilized. So they were disbanding my unit. I was already commuting by then. I was commuting. I was an E6 as an acting platoon sergeant. We were at Fort Lewis, so it's supposed to only be once a month. It turns out that about every weekend I was at some conference or something for the Guard, and I had my own business I was trying to run on top of that, and it just got to the point, yeah, I can step away for a while and I'll just come back later. Well, the coming back later had never happened because I just get busier and busier. So.
Gotcha. Well, thank you very much.
But the Army was fun, and I think for all the kids, I can say kids now because I'm no longer a kid, unless I'm talking to my dad. Military is an absolute joy, but it's like any other job. When you first start, it's horrible.
Right.
And it sounds fun and exciting until you're doing all the jobs nobody else wants because you don't have your rank.
That's right.
It makes you grow up quick.
It does. So you're currently is it the president of the port?
Yes.
Of Moses Lake? And so tell us about the Port of Moses Lake. What does the Port of Moses Lake do for our community?
Well, primarily our job is economic development. So everybody that's inside of our port district, and we have a rather large port district, our goal is to bring jobs to the district.
Okay.
I've given several talks. We have to work hand in hand with the city of Moses Lake because the port is kind of the city and the city is the port.
Yes.
We're intertwined. So when we have major announcements at the port to give, we're already giving them to the city, because if we don't work on infrastructure for the city, it's fine. I can go out and get 5,000 jobs for the city. Okay. But if we don't have the housing and the water, sewer, garbage, schools, hospital, everything else to support that, what do we do? So everybody has to be on the same playing field.
Yeah.
And currently, I've been a port commissioner now for 2 years. I was appointed, so we just went through our election filings, and nobody ran against me. So now I'm in there for another 6 years. We travel as port commissioners all over the world. So, and it has to do with specific interests for the port district.
So
we're running about 11 countries that specifically work at the port. And we travel all over the United States and all over the world. Our staff does, or the commissioners do themselves, to try and get other companies into Moses Lake.
Yeah.
And then with the new announcement of the governor's siting committee for new SeaTac, we're fortunate enough that it was kind of written for Grant County International Airport. And all three of us sat on the board for that commission. So all three of the commissioners from Moses Lake, or the Port of Moses Lake, sat on that board.
Can you explain that? How a new SeaTac is going to? How does Moses Lake be involved in that?
The biggest problem that they have in SeaTac is, if you remember 20 years ago when they started the third runway issue at SeaTac, so there was a big battle. Nobody wanted it. People were upset. They put it in anyway. It was supposed to solve their congestion problems. It didn't. All it did is allow more airplanes to take off and land. When you only have so many acres to put an airplane on, it doesn't matter how many runways you have.
Right.
So volume of traffic, now whether that's commuter aircraft, whether it's domestic or international flights, and cargo flights, is only going to increase. So it increases at every airport across the United States. Worldwide, it increases globally.
Okay.
SeaTac is technically out of room. They have no more room. They're at 100% capacity now. They're already forecasting in the next, I think it's 5 or 6 years, that they'll be 20% over capacity. So if you've ever flown in and out of SeaTac in the last year and a half or 2 years, it's only gotten worse.
And that would mean, over capacity would mean that everything would be delayed or everything would be behind schedule.
Yes, and the problem with that is if you delay that one airplane out of SeaTac, well, imagine the ripple effect in the entire system globally.
Right.
Not just across the United States, it's globally. So there's been about 15 years ago, there was a study that we've all heard about, the bullet train from Moses Lake to Seattle, and everybody laughs and scoffs at it and everything else. Well, we are the only country that doesn't do bullet trains. Everybody else that has bullet trains, there's 5 major countries that kind of supply all of the bullet trains in the world. They run bullet trains everywhere. So to get to the point how we help SeaTac or help Seattle, which in the long run helps us financially and job-wise and everything else, they only have a couple options. They're either going to take SeaTac as itself and make it a domestic airport only. Okay, so there will be no international flights going into SeaTac.
Okay.
And they would divert all the international travel that goes into SeaTac into Grant County Airport.
Really?
Okay. Then they would have to take all of the cargo flights that go into SeaTac. All those cargo flights would come into Grant County International Airport. Then you would take a commuter. So it's kind of reversing the roles over the years. We've always had, way back when we've had commuter service between Grant County and Seattle. We used to have commuter service between Grant County and Spokane.
I've used that. I've used that service.
Yeah, and one of the problems is that little commuter flight is 3 times the amount of ticket price as it is to drive. So you can get let's just pick, and the reason I know this is because one of the council members is just in here. He got a ticket out of Spokane for Las Vegas. It was, I think he said it was $69 one way. Okay. By the time they put the taxes on it, which was another $69, that was his ticket price to go from Spokane to
Las
Vegas. If you were going to fly a commuter flight from Moses Lake to Spokane, that flight would cost more than the ticket would from Spokane to Las Vegas.
Right.
So commuter travel, unless there's a huge volume of it, is very expensive. So SeaTac over the years has, and their commissioners, they have 7 of them, have done their best and due diligence for their communities to try and make that airport grow. And they've grown it so well that there's no more room to grow. They can't buy any more property. There's no more property to be had. So to kind of tell you how big the differences are between Grant County Airport and SeaTac, if you took the entire SeaTac airport, all the property, the roads, everything inside of their fence, you can lay 2 of that properties inside of our fence at Grant County.
Oh.
So that tells you the difference in size.
Right.
And then we're also one of the largest runways in the continental United States. So that's why the B-52s were back in here 2 weeks ago, which was kind of ironic because it's a B-52, and it hasn't been here for 52 years. So it's kind of weird that they showed up on the anniversary.
That's cool.
And all of the B-52s in inventory were all delivered from Moses Lake. So even though Boeing built them and they were built over on the coast and they were built in Kansas, those airplanes all flew to Moses Lake, all went into buildings now as the Genie building and the Chemicon building. The Chemicon building that was out there was the paint booth. So they would wheel those jets in there, paint them up into the Air Force colors and back out on service, and they would deliver them to the Air Force here in Moses Lake.
That's cool.
So Moses Lake has a huge history of flight testing.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, we're still out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And the citizens of Moses Lake don't mind the noise. I mean, we've been used to Japan Airlines for almost 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
So they get used to it. And the only time that changes is if it's a new kind of airplane that makes some weird noise. Then as commissioners, then we get the calls.
Right.
Well, what's that? Well, it's something the military's doing.
That you brought that flight testing up. I don't know if you did it when you were in 6th grade, but when we were in 6th grade, they would fly us.
Yeah.
They would fly us over the Grand Coulee Dam and then over Hanford, and then we'd fly back. And then I don't remember what grade I was in, but the SST, the supersonic plane, that tested here in Moses Lake. So I remember growing up around it. When we first moved back into Moses Lake in '99, we lived near the antennas there on Division, and the airplane, the airplanes came right over our house. And now where I live, I can see them out my front window. The flight path is in front of my home, but it's in view of my front window, and so I've been able to enjoy the airplanes. And some of them seem to be louder than others, but no, I don't think it's anything that because of the relationships that we've had with Japan Airlines and with Boeing and all of that is I think it's part of Moses Lake, along with the fact that we do have the longest airstrip right here in Grant County. We still have a wonderful relationship with Japan Airlines. We still communicate. We still visit. They still come here. Their executives still come here and talk to the port commissioners. Excuse me. And quite frankly, the only reason they're not still here is the 747 in its form that they have now. It's not right for their market. So they're flying a lot of 777s. They don't need the big long runway that the 747s needed. And believe it or not, their primary flight test and testing center now is in Guam. And a lot of it's done by simulators. Wow. So that's where they've moved their flight test to. Okay, and that's something I didn't know.
There is good news. Japan Airlines now is in SeaTac. So for years we've had, if you ever wanted to fly Japan Airlines, you used to have to go to Vancouver, Canada to get on Japan Airlines. Oh. So now Japan Airlines is now in SeaTac.
Oh, that's cool.
So a lot of the sister city stuff between Yanazawa and ourselves, all the kids, we'd have to bus them or drive them to Canada to get them on a Japan Airlines airplane. And same with when they brought their kids over, we'd all have to drive to Vancouver to pick their kids up and drive them to Moses Lake.
I didn't realize that. So the event that's coming up here, Father's Day weekend, is have we had an air show like this ever in Moses Lake?
Years ago. I'm going to say I was probably 10 or 12, somewhere in there.
That's been a few years.
We had kind of almost as bad as the Wright brothers. So we had one that was kind of put together it was the Port of Moses Lake, kind of. It was a bunch of ag pilots that got together and was going to outdo everybody. So that quick, an air show, when you first start out, there's no money in it. Okay?
Sure.
There's really no money, like in a municipal airport. There's no money in an airport. The ground is a heck of a lot more valuable than the asphalt an airplane lands on.
Right.
So, and you can get sponsors and everything else, but it's trying to get that sponsorship and continue to get that sponsorship. So a prime example of an air show, and one of the largest air shows in the United States, is called AirVenture. It's in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. So they started, this year will be their 50th year of an air show. And to give you some quick stats, last year's gate turnout was 601,000 people.
600,000.
We had 600,000 people.
Wow.
It was 8 days, so it's a Sunday through a Sunday. It generated since it's a regional airport, it generated for 4 counties in those 8 days. It generated $170 million in those 8 days.
That's incredible.
So that's hotels, meals.
Sure.
You know, anything you can possibly think of, like a big car show. It's just an air show. And I have always said when I was a kid, you know, okay, the Air Force isn't at the base anymore. There's never anything that goes on out there. You know, what's going on? So when I got appointed as an airport commissioner, man, there's a lot of stuff going on here. And my folks have been here, you know, just as long as me, 52 years. I don't think they know what's going on out here. And it's always been kind of a quiet, you know, yeah, we do a lot of stuff, but we never tell anybody what we're doing.
Yes.
And it's my contention from day one when I got on there. Look, I've been here my whole life. I went through the school system in Moses Lake. It was quite ironic. I got to help train one of my teachers as a pilot, Paul Idy. So one of my favorite teachers in school. He didn't know what goes on. So I've always wanted to do an outreach to our community. I mean, after all, we're taxing you.
Sure.
You know, if you don't know what we're doing for you, then something's not quite right. So I've been to thousands of air shows growing up, and for me, it's like more of a talk show than it is an air show for me, because airplane's an airplane. But for a kid that sees an airplane up there for the first time, and he asks his dad, "Well, what is that?" And the dad said, "Well, it's an airplane." And the reason we put it on Father's Day, and it's specifically Father's Day because we don't do anything on Sunday. That is Father's Day. But it allows them to take their sons or daughters to an event and say, look, this is what you can do. Look at all the stuff they can do. So there is all kinds of activities that weekend. There's the car show, there's food, there's acrobatic teams from all over the United States. And it hopefully will do nothing but get bigger and bigger every year.
So this is something you guys plan to start doing annually?
So we have.
Oh, you broke up there for a second. Go ahead, Darrin.
The Port of Moses Lake has committed resources for the next 4 years for the air show. The city of Moses Lake has committed 4 years through the LTAC. That's the hotel motel tax.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of ironic. People from out of town pay that tax, so it's not really the citizens of Moses Lake that are paying that. And hopefully we can generate a lot more people into the city. I'm hoping that we get 5,000 to 6,000 people.
Oh, that'll be terrific. And it's a 2-day event. Starts on Saturday.
2-day event. Starts on Friday.
The June 14th.
Starts on Friday the 14th and ends on Saturday the 15th.
And tell us, do you have a list of some of the events that are going to be going on?
There is. Let me see if I can bring them up here. So there's 6 acrobatic events, or 6 acrobatic pilots. One of them is Will Allen. He does an acrobatic show with rock and roll music. And then there's a gal, a very, very comparable pilot. Her name is Vicky Benzine.
Mm-hmm.
She's an outstanding acrobatic pilot. There's an Alpha Jet. So if guys can go into one of the James Bond movies, I can't remember which one it is, but it's the same style of jet they're flying in James Bond.
Oh, cool.
The Army Golden Knights parachute team. They're actually flying them in to open and do some skydiving for the event. There's another team called Yellow Thunder that fly antique T6 aircraft. So it's the oldest Army trainer. And if anybody goes on YouTube, they can find those guys flying. And if you've ever seen a plane water ski on water, there's some of the pilots that do that. So they actually put their wheels in the water as they're flying and ski across the lakes. And then we also have a manufacturing company that's coming, and they're Sonics aircraft. They build one of the only home-built jet aircraft that you can build in your house. So he does an acrobatics display in that.
That's very cool. And
anybody can get on the net. It's MosesLakeAirshow.com.
I
posted buy apparel, hats, clothes.
I posted your website on the introduction of this show, and you're also on Facebook, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so they can
We're
find.
We're trying to get as many people as we can possibly get to show up, because we want to. We're, as a commissioner, I'm very proud of not only my staff, and I'm proud of the people of Moses Lake. So, because without their support, we wouldn't have any of this.
Sure. So, well, that was the intention of see if we can't get the word out to more folks that this is something that's coming up June 14th and 15th, which is that's just in 2 weekends.
Yeah, right around the corner.
Right around the corner. Yeah, my good friend Nick told me that I should invite you to the show, and this has been wonderful getting to know you and hearing some of your stories. There's a lot of things that I didn't know about the Grant County Airport and about the relationship that we've had with Japan Airlines and with the Grant County International Airport involved with the changes or the whatever's happening at SeaTac. That's something that I didn't know, and this has been very educational. Is there anything else?
Anytime you want to tour, just come out. We'll give you a tour.
We'll have to do that.
So that people will kind of see all of the industry that's out there. And when I was a kid, when you and I grew up, there wasn't a lot going on here but agriculture.
Right.
So I can still remember the days of United Sugar and the sugar beets closing, and everybody went, "Oh my God, what do we do?
What's going to happen?"
So Moses Lake is hugely diversified globally now.
It has.
So it's really spread out, and we're in a lot of businesses all over the world.
And that's a good thing. That's a very good thing. Well, Darrin,
so we'll start flying our cherries again. Last year was the first time we flew cherries out of Grant County.
Oh.
So we were guaranteed cherries from tree to table. So most of the cherries came out of Chelan. We were guaranteeing cherries from Grant County or Moses Lake, Washington to Hong Kong in 24 hours. So, and I know that sounds kind of weird, but we're kind of cheating. We get to go across the international date line. So it was actually 48 hours by clock, but it was 24 hours. Yeah, it was 24 hours by the date. So. But we shipped out 13 loads of cherries last year, about 100,000 pounds per aircraft. This year we expect to do between 50 and 90 flights of cherries all over Asia.
Awesome.
And we don't actually do that. We just help facilitate in that. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Well, Darrin, this has been a really nice visit. I appreciate your time. I know folks here on the bench with Big Jim enjoy learning about different things. This is an event that it's a family-friendly event. There'll be food out there. There'll be all kinds of different shows. The car show is going to be out there as well. So
car show is going to be out there.
It's all going to be in one place. And where should people go? I mean, if you're looking to have that many people, is there going to be an issue with parking, or people can just go?
We made arrangements with the college, and they're going to have parking people out there. not unsimilar to what we used to do at the fair years ago.
Cool.
So you'll have parking people, and we'll have little trams that'll carry you in because it's such a big area. So yeah,
That'll be terrific.
And remember, first year there might be some hiccups. So
oh, sure, but
I'm just hoping they all smooth out. So
that'll be good. Well, Darrin, this has been fun. It's good to get to know you. I'll have to come by your shop and visit with you about this and how it ends up going.
Sure, you bet.
Thank you very much for.
I appreciate the opportunity.
No, this has been fun. I'm glad you were able to arrange to be on the show with us today, and we appreciate your time.
You bet.
All right, man.
Have a great afternoon, Jim.
You too, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All righty.
Bye.
I wanted to thank Darrin Jackson of Jackson Flight Center. He's also the commissioner with the Port of Moses Lake, and that was very educational. I was able to learn a lot of stuff there. And if that's something that, for Father's Day, that's something that you could take your father to and have an enjoyable time at an air show. I've been to a couple air shows, one at Luke's Air Force Base down in Litchfield Park, Arizona, just west of Phoenix, and it was a wonderful, amazing show of aviation, and that's something that you guys can do. We have an opportunity to have here in Moses Lake. I wanted to thank everybody. I appreciate my sponsors, Jay's Teriyaki, Thesis Merchant Solutions, Frederick's Jeweler, and Boost Mobile for being a part of sponsoring this show. I'd like to thank you all for popping in and checking us out. I want to wish you all a great Wednesday. It is Wednesday, and the week is continuing on. Hope you have a great Thursday, Friday, and getting ready for the weekend. And just think of it, 2 more days in May, and we'll have June right here around the corner on Saturday. And it's amazing how fast the year goes along. Again, thank you all. Appreciate you. If you have a comment, or if you'd like me to visit with someone that has an interesting story or some stories to tell, get in touch with me or post here on the show, and we'll see what we can't do to hook up with them. Again, thank you, everybody. This has been On the Bench with Big Jim, Jim Nielsen, and I hope you all have a great day. We'll talk to you on Friday. Take care, everybody. Bye.